They say that in the vacuum of space, no one can hear you scream. That's bullshit. I've heard plenty of screams, mine included, echoing through the steel ribs of ships as they broke apart under fire, through failing comm systems and atmosphere vents bleeding oxygen like lifeblood. Space doesn't muffle terror. It carries it, if you know how to listen. My name is Elias Trent. Captain, survivor, last human, so far as I know. I woke up cold. Not the kind of cold you shrug off with a thermal blanket. The kind of cold that clings to your bones and whispers you're already dead. Cryostasis was supposed to be a dreamless sleep, a soft blink between stars. Instead, it felt like drowning in a glacier. The chamber hissed as it released me. My eyelids fluttered open to red emergency lights strobing across a corpse of a ship. The Solstice, last Ark-class vessel out of the Earth system, had once carried 1,000,000 lives and hopes. Now she carried rot and silence. The air stank, metal, ozone, and something sour. Death. Computer. I croaked, voice like gravel. Nothing. I stumbled out of the pod, legs rubbery, stomach trying to revolt. My stasis suit clung to my frame, soaked in sweat. A glance around the cryo bay confirmed what I already feared: rows of dead pods, frosted glass, blue corpses. Some didn't even make it through the transition. The survival rate was supposed to be 97%. Looks like I was in the lucky 3%. Status lights blinked red. Power failing. Systems offline. I staggered to the central console and slammed my palm onto the override. Come on, you piece of... The screen flickered. Static. Then a looped message, grainy and glitching. Mission failure. Humanity extinct. Repeat. Mission failure. Humanity EXT. I shut it off. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I didn't want to. The Ark had launched 2 decades ago, final attempt to save our species after the collapse. Earth choked on war, climate, famine, and something far worse: fear. Not fear of death, fear of being forgotten. We'd found alien signals just before the end, proof we weren't alone. It had sparked hope, and then panic. Governments scrambled to launch survival ships. The Ark-class vessels were our best shot. We should have made it. I forced myself through the corridors. Life support barely sputtered, gravity inconsistent, debris floating in slow drifts where systems had failed. One section had been completely depressurized, gaping hull, the stars peeking in like curious predators. I found the crew deck. More bodies, dried blood, scorch marks. Someone had fought here. What the hell had happened? I raided an emergency locker and suited up properly: Kevlar-laced pressure suit, auto-seal helmet, a pulse sidearm. Not enough for war, but enough to not die stupid. As I moved toward the command bridge, my boots clanked with eerie rhythm, echoing like footsteps that weren't mine. When the door slid open, I found the captain's chair empty, but someone had carved a message into the steel beside it. They're not gods. They just think they are. It was then I noticed the claw marks on the walls. Long, deep, jagged, too precise for a beast, too savage for a tool. Alien. I accessed what remained of the ship's logs. Most were corrupted, but a few fragments survived. Unknown vessel approached. No response to hails. Hull breach, automated defenses down. They weren't here to talk. If anyone finds this, tell them we fought. And then nothing. The looped extinction message had been automatically triggered. The systems had assumed everyone died. Maybe they had. Maybe I was a glitch in the system. Or maybe someone wanted me to think it was over. The silence broke. Not with a scream this time, but a ping. Motion detected. Cargo Bay 3. I should have turned around. Should have sealed the bridge and waited to run out of oxygen with dignity. But if Earth taught me anything, it's that we don't die quietly. We go down swinging. I made my way down 3 decks, pulse pistol tight in hand. The lights were dim, but functional. The sensors kept blinking. Movement. 20 meters. I raised my weapon. A shape moved in the shadows, too tall, too thin. Identify yourself. I barked. No response. I took cover behind a container and peeked around the corner. That's when I saw it. Not one. 3 figures, vaguely humanoid, but stretched and wrong. Exoskeletal armor, insectoid limbs, glowing eyes. Alien, armed. They hadn't seen me yet. I watched them scan containers, communicating in clicks and gestures. Raiders? Scavengers? Assassins? I didn't wait to find out. I popped up, fired 2 shots. One took a bastard in the throat, if it had one. It dropped. The other 2 hissed, dove for cover. Return fire lashed out, searing blue bolts. One clipped the corner near my head, melted through metal like it was butter. Right. I muttered. Not the welcoming committee. I moved, fast and low. Years of Earth training kicking in. I flanked left, came around behind, and tossed an old maintenance drone as a distraction. As they turned, I fired again a headshot. The last one rushed me, blade arm extended. Too fast. I dropped the pistol, drew my emergency knife, ducked under its lunge, and drove the blade into its side. It screeched, acidic blood splashing my visor. It stumbled. I ripped the blade free and tackled it against the bulkhead. It flailed, shrieking, until I punched it in the face so hard its visor cracked. Then I stopped. It was still breathing, and I had questions. I sealed the bay, reinforced the door, and activated the interrogation field from an old security terminal. The alien convulsed once, then went still. Its voice, translated by my helmet's software, came through distorted. You should be dead, so I've been told. Who are you? Karnathi Vanguard. We cleanse unworthy species. Unworthy? I repeated. You mean us. Earth was a threat. You rose too fast. Unstable. Violent. You had to be erased before you poisoned the stars. I stood there, fists clenched. And you think we deserved it? You are chaos. Fire without purpose. War without end. I leaned in. We are war. We were born in it. Raised by it. You think that makes us weak? The alien clicked softly. It makes you dangerous. That is why we came. I realized then, they didn't just destroy us out of fear. They did it out of strategy. It was a preemptive strike. Galactic genocide by bureaucracy. Clean, efficient, cowardly. I left the thing tied and unconscious. Let it rot. I went back to the bridge, fingers trembling, and activated the distress beacon, but not to call for help, to call for a reckoning. I changed the message. My voice, ragged but clear, echoed into the void. This is Captain Elias Trent of the Solstice. Earth is gone, but I'm not, and I'm coming. For every world that cheered while we burned, for every empire that called us a mistake, we're not extinct. We're just angry, and we're armed. I paused. You wanted fire? You got it. Then I turned to the alien ship still docked in our belly. Sleek, fast, light years ahead of our tech. Time to learn how to fly it. If I couldn't save Earth, I'd damn well avenge it. And I wouldn't be alone for long. Because if I survived cryo, maybe others did too. And if I was the last ember of humanity, I was going to start a fire so big the stars would choke on our name. Humanity wasn't extinct. Not yet. The alien ship loomed like a shark in the dark, cold belly of the solstice. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and probably hadn't thought straight since I woke up. But one thing was clear. That vessel wasn't here for a friendly chat. The Karnathi. That was the name my prisoner called them. An insectoid species who thought wiping us out was some kind of strategic housekeeping. They were cocky, ruthless, and convinced they were the galaxy's moral police. I was about to give them a lesson in human resilience. Boarding the beast. The Karnathi ship was docked in one of the Solstice's cargo bays. The docking clamps hissed and vibrated under my touch. The hull was cold steel, slick, alien. I took a deep breath and slipped my pulse pistol out. The hum of its power cell steady in my palm. The doors slid open with a hiss. Darkness swallowed me. My helmet's HUD lit up, scanning for life signs, motion, heat signatures. There were plenty inside. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them. The ship was a labyrinth of narrow corridors, tight stairwells, and strange tech that pulsed with blue bioluminescence. I moved like a ghost, silent, careful. The alien sensors were advanced, but not perfect. I counted on my instincts and luck. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a figure moved. A Karnathi soldier, huge and armored, patrolling a junction. His carapace gleamed under the eerie light. They looked like bugs, tall, multi-limbed, with mandibles twitching as if tasting the air. I crept behind a bulkhead and steadied my breathing. Strike fast, strike clean. A quick shot to the neck from my pulse pistol, and he dropped without a sound. I dragged him into the shadows before the others could hear. A hostile surprise. But the moment I moved forward, alarms blared. I cursed under my breath. The Karnathi were alerted. From every direction, boots pounded the metal catwalks, rifles charging with energy bolts. I ducked behind a console as streaks of blue light scorched the walls inches from my head. They were fast, but I was faster. I found a maintenance shaft and slid down into the guts of the ship, wrenching open panels and cutting power to sections to blind my pursuers. The ship shuddered with distant explosions as I sabotaged systems, reactor cooling, life support nodes, navigation arrays. It was chaos, and I loved every second. I fought, clawed, and sprinted through corridors, every encounter leaving behind smoke, sparks, and alien corpses. I could hear them call out to each other in that shrill clicking language, Something about the primitive and last human. They underestimated me. The prisoner. I finally cornered one. Their commander or something close. He was different, wiser. His armor was ornate, engraved with symbols that might as well have been trophies. Stop. He hissed in perfect basic, the galaxy's lingua franca. Why? So you can kill me. I growled. He held up his multi-limbed hands in a gesture of peace. We don't want to kill you, he said. We want to understand you. I laughed bitterly. You want to understand us? You destroyed our home, our people. Is that what you call understanding? He was silent a moment, then spoke carefully. We were ordered to eliminate your species. Earth was deemed a threat by the Galactic Core, and you believed them? They feared your potential, your unpredictability. You have qualities no other species has. It frightened them. I stared at him. Frightened? We're just survivors. His mandibles twitched. Survivors. Yes, but dangerous. You adapt too fast, fight too fiercely. You could disrupt the balance of power. You're damn right we could. The dance of minds. We sat in a makeshift cell in the ship's brig, the low hum of the engines vibrating through the floor. I'm Elias Trent, I said, captain of the Solstice, and I'm the last of my kind, at least for now. The Karnathi commander nodded solemnly. I am Vraxthal, commander of the Vanguard Detachment. He told me about the Shatter War, a coordinated campaign by the Galactic Core to wipe out rising species before they could threaten galactic hegemony. Earth was the first, a preemptive strike to prevent humanity's aggressive expansion. They underestimated your will to live, he said. I smirked. That's because they don't know what it means to be human. Tell me, Vraxthal said, what makes humanity different from others? I thought for a moment. It's our chaos, I said finally. Our madness, our refusal to bow to fate or fear. We fight with everything we have. Brains, brawn, heart. When you crush us, we come back stronger. You think this is extinction? It's evolution. He was quiet, but I saw a flicker of something. Respect? Fear? Maybe both. Turning the tables. I didn't waste time. I needed that ship. The Solstice was dying, but the Karnathi vessel was fast, agile, and armed to the teeth. While Vraxthal was distracted, I disabled his restraints and attacked. The fight was brutal. His many limbs were lightning fast, but I had my own tricks. A knife to the joint, a hard punch, a desperate grab for his rifle. When I finally subdued him, I dragged him to the command deck. Time to fly, I said. He laughed, a low, guttural sound. You think you can command a Karnathi warship? I'm about to prove I can. Flight of the Void Reaper. I learned fast. Karnathi tech was alien. Yes, but it wasn't magic. It was just advanced engineering and ruthless design. I hacked the navigation system, mapped the weapon arrays, and set a course for the nearest human colonies. Why do this? Vraxthal asked, still tied in the chair. Because if I don't, you'll find me dead in a ditch somewhere, and the rest of humanity will be dust. We're survivors, and survivors don't beg for mercy. He nodded slowly, as if understanding something fundamental. I renamed the ship Void Reaper, a name to remind anyone who listened that humanity was not done, not forgotten, and definitely not extinct. A message to the galaxy. With the Void Reaper's weapons charged and engines humming, I sent a broadcast on all frequencies. To every corner of the galaxy, Earth is lost, but humanity isn't. We're coming. We fight like hell. We bleed. We break. We rise. And we're not alone. If you hear this and you're human, stand up. The war is just beginning. Vraxthal watched me from the chair, no longer an enemy, but a reminder of the galaxy's arrogance. I was one man against the stars, but I wasn't alone. Because fire, human fire, once lit, burns bright and never dies. The Void Reaper wasn't just a stolen warship. It was a symbol, and symbols burn brighter when they ignite hope. But hope is a double-edged sword. It draws friends and enemies. Picking up the pieces. After the broadcast, I expected silence or an immediate assault. Instead, I got something far stranger. A response. The message came through encrypted and scrambled, but the words were clear enough. Humanity is not extinct. We fight alongside you. Meet at Argus Station. I nearly dropped the comm unit. Argus Station was on the Outer Rim, a lawless outpost that served as a hub for smugglers, mercs, and exiles, the perfect place to find people who didn't give a damn about the Galactic Core's decrease. I set course immediately. The journey. Space was cold and empty, but I didn't feel alone anymore. Vraxthal sat quietly in the command chair, still bound but oddly calm. The Karnathi commander had become my reluctant advisor. His knowledge of enemy tactics, ship capabilities, in galactic core politics was invaluable. Why do you help me? I asked him once. He looked away, his mandibles twitching thoughtfully. Because if humanity falls, the core's enemies grow stronger. Balance is fragile. I want to preserve it, even if it means bending old loyalties. I didn't argue. Alliances were messy, especially when forged under fire. Arrival at Argus Station. Argus Station was a sprawling asteroid base, carved out of rock and metal, orbiting a gas giant's toxic atmosphere. It looked like a junkyard, with ships patched up from scavenged parts and neon signs flickering against the dark. The docking was rough. I didn't want to attract attention, but attention was exactly what we got. "Welcome to the wild side, Captain," Vraxtal muttered as we disembarked. New faces, old grudges. Inside, the station was a hive of activity. Aliens, humans, cyborgs, and creatures I couldn't even identify mingled in the crowded market halls and shadowed alleys. I scanned the crowd for our contact, a woman named Lyra, a human mercenary and rumored leader of a rebel faction. She found me first. "Captain Trent," she said with a smirk, "the last human standing. Heard a lot about you. Mostly lies, I hope." She laughed. "Depends who you ask. The Galactic Core calls you a terrorist. We call you Hope, the Rebel Alliance." Lyra introduced me to her crew, a ragtag group of fighters who had lost everything to the Core's purges. There was Tech, a grizzled ex-pilot with a cybernetic arm, Zaya, a tech genius who hacked Core satellites for fun, and Jax, a sniper whose steady aim was legendary. They were ready to fight. "We need you, Captain," Lyra said. "Your story, your ship, your fire. Together, we can hit back." I felt the weight of responsibility settle in. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about resistance. A message from the past. As we planned, a sudden alert flashed across the Void Reaper's systems. Incoming transmission from Earth. My heart skipped. It was faint, garbled, but unmistakably human. "Captain Trent, if you're alive, we're still here. Resistance is growing. Don't lose hope." The signal cut out. I clenched my fists. Earth wasn't gone. Not yet. Ambush at the outpost. Our meeting at Argus hadn't gone unnoticed. As night fell on the station, alarms screamed. The Galactic Core's fleet had arrived, sleek warships bristling with weapons. "Get to the ship," Lyra shouted. We fought through corridors, dodging plasma blasts and enemy soldiers. The station shook with explosions. Vraxtal moved beside me, firing with brutal efficiency. "Stick to the plan," I barked. "Get the Void Reaper to launch Bay 3. We ran through a hail of fire, bodies falling around us. At the bay, Tech and Zaya worked furiously on the engines. "Almost there," Tech yelled. "Fire and flight." The Core soldiers crashed into the bay just as the engines roared to life. I took the helm, fingers flying over controls. The Void Reaper lifted off amidst a barrage of fire. The warship's shields flared, absorbing the worst. "Punch it, Captain," Lyra urged. We shot forward, dodging missiles and weaving through the chaos. Behind us, Argus Station burned, a pyre for the fallen. The cost of war. In the aftermath, we regrouped in a nearby asteroid field. The crew was battered but alive. Vraxtal tended his wounds, grim but resolute. "We're not just fighting for survival," I said to the group. "We're fighting for the future." Lyra nodded. "And we have to be smart. The Core's reach is vast, but so is ours." I looked around at the ragtag crew, humans and alien allies, all willing to stand against impossible odds. A new mission. The Void Reaper was no longer just a stolen ship. It was a beacon. Our next move? Strike at the Core's supply lines, cripple their operations, and rally more rebels. The galaxy was waking up, and humanity was roaring back to life. Final thoughts. That night, as the stars shimmered cold and distant through the viewport, I let myself hope. Hope for Earth. Hope for humanity. Hope for a future where we weren't just survivors. We were fighters. We were legends. And we were just getting started. The void between stars is more than emptiness. It's a canvas painted with silence, waiting for the roar of engines and the flash of laser fire. Out here, in the shadow of forgotten battles, legends are born or die. And in this darkness, I was about to find a fleet of ghosts. The briefing. The Void Reaper hummed softly as I stood on the command deck, staring at the holographic star map projected before me. Jagged lines and dots marked the known galactic territories, but one region was shaded darker than the rest. The Nebula Expanse, a no-man's land where ships vanished without a trace. Lyra and her crew gathered around, tension crackling in the air. This is where we hit next, I said, pointing to the shaded sector. The core's supply routes run through here. Disrupting them will slow their advance. Zaya tapped a few controls and zoomed in on a cluster of dots flickering faintly. These are old, she said, but there's a pattern, signs of ships that disappeared years ago. It's like a ghost fleet. Ghost fleet. Tech raised an eyebrow, cybernetic arm twitching with curiosity. Yeah, I said. Ships lost in battle, assumed destroyed or stranded. But what if they're not? Vraxthal, seated quietly in the corner, finally spoke. The nebula expanse is dangerous. It's a graveyard for many fleets, but the core won't send help there. If a fleet survived, it's likely hiding, waiting, watching. The room fell silent. Into the abyss. We set course into the nebula expanse. The ship's engines thrummed as stars stretched into lines. The nebula was a swirling mass of gas and cosmic dust, casting eerie colors across the viewport. Purples, greens, and deep reds. Visibility was low. Sensors struggled to cut through the interference. Keep your eyes open, I warned the crew. We don't know what's out there. Hours stretched like days. The Void Reaper drifted deeper into the mist. Then, on the edge of the sensor range, something appeared. A fleet, hulking, battered, but unmistakably human. The Lost Fleet. The ships floated like specters, their hulls scarred and marked by time and battle. Most were silent, darkened as if powered down. Their names faded into myth. I recognized one instantly. The Argus Vindicator, a dreadnought lost during the first wave of core attacks. Is this real? Lyra whispered. More than real, I said. They're alive. Somehow. Vraxthal scanned the fleet, then frowned. Ghosts don't die easy. These ships may be stranded or trapped. We sent out a hail, broadcasting our identity and intentions. No response. Boarding the past. Determined to find answers, I assembled a boarding party. Zaya, Lyra, Tech, and a few others followed me through the airlock onto the nearest ship, the Argus Vindicator. Inside, the corridors were silent but heavy with the ghosts of the past. Lights flickered weakly. Systems were on emergency power. We moved cautiously, alert for hostiles or traps. In the command bridge, we found logs and recordings, evidence of a last stand against the core fleet, a desperate attempt to buy time for retreating civilians. But then, a chilling message. Containment breach, biohazard, quarantine protocol activated. The shadows within. Before we could react, the air around us shimmered. Suddenly, figures emerged from the shadows, not dead, but twisted by isolation and desperation. Former crew members, transformed by a strange alien pathogen that altered their minds and bodies into something else. They attacked without hesitation. Fight for survival. The battle was brutal. Pulse pistols flared, and I fought hand-to-hand with one of the infected. His strength unnatural, his eyes wild with rage. Lyra's sharpshooting kept the others at bay, while Tech rigged the ship's systems to trap the creatures. Zaya hacked into the life support to release a sedative gas. Slowly, the infected retreated, but the danger wasn't over. The pathogen was spreading, a risky choice. Back on the Void Reaper, we debated our next move. Destroy the fleet? Risk losing valuable ships and technology? Or attempt to cleanse it? A dangerous gamble with unknown consequences. I took a deep breath. We can't abandon them, I said. These ships and crews are our past, and maybe our future. Vraxthal nodded reluctantly, but we must contain the threat. We set to work, turning the Void Reaper into a makeshift quarantine and repair station. Rebirth of the fleet. Days passed. The infected were isolated and treated with experimental medicines Zaya whipped up from core tech and alien biology. Slowly, some began to recover. Minds cleared, memories returned. One survivor, Captain Elena Morozov of the Argus Vindicator, met me with fierce eyes. We thought we were ghosts, she said, but maybe we're the spark. We forged an alliance, a new dawn. With the lost fleet repaired and crews restored, our numbers swelled. The Void Reaper was no longer a lone fighter. We had allies, a ghost fleet risen from the ashes, but the fight was far from over. The Galactic Core would come for us again, and this time, we'd be ready. Final reflections. Standing on the bridge, staring into the nebula's swirling mists, I felt a surge of something fierce. Hope. Because even in the darkest void, humanity's fire could never be extinguished. We were ghosts no longer. We were the storm. The galaxy might be vast, but the core's reach was like a shadow stretching into every dark corner. Just when you think you've escaped its grasp, it sneaks up behind you. Silent, relentless, and deadly. And in this game of cat and mouse, shadows are where the real battles are fought. The warning. We'd barely caught our breath after bringing the Ghost fleet back from the edge when the Void Reaper's sensors picked up an anomaly, a small but heavily armed core cruiser shadowing us from the far side of an asteroid belt. Vraxthal was the first to sound the alarm. "They found us," he said grimly. I scanning the readouts. Core's watching, waiting. Lyra slammed her fist on the console. "We can't let them track us back to Argus Station or Earth. We need a plan fast." The hunter becomes the hunted. The cruiser moved like a ghost itself, staying just out of sensor range, darting between asteroids, hunting. I knew this game. It wasn't about firepower. It was about information. If they found our location, the entire rebellion would be crushed. "Let's turn the tables," I said. "We'll lure them into the asteroid field." Then we hit. The crew scrambled into action. Tech ran diagnostics on the ship's stealth and weapon systems, while Zaya prepared a network of hacking traps to fry their sensors. Into the maze. Navigating the asteroid belt was treacherous. Massive chunks of rock twisted and collided in chaotic orbits, creating a deadly maze. We dove deeper, engines throttled low to avoid detection. Vraxthal piloted with precision, weaving the Void Reaper through narrow passes that would have shredded lesser ships. The core cruiser followed, but its size was a disadvantage. Suddenly, I gave the order. Fire the decoys. Fire and deception. The ship deployed a series of holographic duplicates, flickering images of the Void Reaper darting through the rocks. The cruiser hesitated, confused, targeting the wrong ship. Zaya launched a virus into their sensor network, scrambling their guidance systems. "Now!" I yelled. The Void Reaper's pulse cannons lit up, firing into the cruiser's hull. Battle in the shadows. The cruiser fought back fiercely. Plasma bolts tore through asteroids, sending debris crashing all around us. The hull groaned under the strain of near misses. Vraxthal shouted from the pilot's chair. "Shields at 60%. Evasive maneuvers." We danced a deadly ballet, dodging fire and returning blows. Lyra and Jax coordinated a strike team to board the cruiser. If we take out their command, the ship falls. Boarding action. With the cruiser weakened, the boarding team launched. I joined them, heart pounding as we breached the hull. Inside, the ship was a fortress, dimly lit corridors, armed core soldiers ready to kill on sight. The team moved fast and hard, using silenced weapons and tactical strikes. I found myself face to face with a core captain, his eyes cold and unyielding. Duel in the dark. The fight was brutal, close quarters, and unforgiving. Our blades clashed, sparks flying as the core captain swung a plasma sword. I ducked, rolled, and struck with a precision shot from my pulse pistol. He fell, but the battle was far from over. The core's secret. We hacked into the cruiser's data core and uncovered their mission. A covert operation to infiltrate rebel bases and assassinate key leaders, including me. The core wasn't just after control. They wanted to extinguish hope. "This isn't just war," Lyra said grimly. "It's genocide." A narrow escape. As alarms blared, the cruiser began to self-destruct. We rushed back to the Void Reaper, racing against time. The ship shook violently as explosions rocked the hull. With seconds to spare, we blasted off. Aftermath and resolve. Back on the bridge, breathing heavy, I looked around at the crew. We'd survived, but the core was more dangerous than ever. "This fight is far from over," I said. "But neither is our fire." Final thoughts. In the shadows of the core, we found not just enemies, but our own strength. We were hunted, but we were fighters. And in the darkness, humanity's light burned brightest. War has a way of echoing through time. Long after the last shot is fired, its reverberations linger, shaping the future and haunting those who survived. The scars of battle aren't just on the hulls of our ships or the broken bodies of our crew. They're etched deep inside us. The return to Argus Station. After the narrow escape from the core cruiser, the Void Reaper limped toward Argus Station, the last known human stronghold on the edge of controlled space. The station was a battered fortress orbiting a dying star, a hub for resistance fighters and smugglers alike, a last beacon of hope in a galaxy consumed by the core's relentless expansion. As we docked, the welcome was cold but practical. Vraxthal met us on the landing bay, his expression grave. "The core's been here," he said quietly. "They're tightening their grip." Ghosts of the past. Inside the station, the air was thick with tension. Walls bore the marks of recent skirmishes, scorch marks, shattered panels, hastily patched bullet holes. I walked through the corridors, memories flooding back. Argus Station wasn't just a military outpost. It was home, a place where I'd trained, fought, and lost friends. Captain, a voice called out. It was Elena Morozov, the Argus Vindicator captain from the Ghost Fleet. She looked exhausted, but determined. We've received intelligence, she said. The Corps is planning a massive assault. They want to crush us here, preparing for the storm. The station's defenses were weak. Outdated turrets, scarce ammunition, and a skeleton crew. We don't have enough firepower to hold them off, I admitted. But we do have something better. People who refuse to give up. We rallied the fighters, from hardened veterans to young recruits barely out of training. Zaya worked tirelessly, upgrading weapons and hacking the station's systems to bolster security. Lyra coordinated with the fleet, readying ships for battle. The calm before the storm. That night, the station was eerily quiet. I stood on the observation deck, staring at the distant stars. The nebula glowed faintly, a swirling sea of colors that seemed peaceful, but I knew better. This calm was the prelude to chaos. I thought about the lives depending on us, the families, the fighters, the dreamers. Failure wasn't an option. Infiltration and sabotage. Then the first sign of trouble. Saboteurs struck under the cover of darkness, disabling key systems and opening airlocks. Tech and I led a counter-raid, hunting down the infiltrators. In the dark corridors, the fight was brutal, close quarters, echoing gunfire, desperate struggles. We captured one of them, a young Corps operative, barely more than a kid. He looked at me with something I didn't expect. Fear. Why? I asked quietly. Why are you doing this? He hesitated, then whispered, because I have no choice. The price of war. The infiltrators' words haunted me. The Corps didn't just conquer by force. They controlled through fear, coercion, and manipulation. War was a cycle, and sometimes the enemy was just another victim. That realization made the fight harder, but also deeper. We weren't just fighting ships and soldiers. We were fighting an empire built on broken lives. The Corps' assault. Days later, the Corps fleet arrived, a terrifying armada of cruisers, frigates, and dreadnoughts. Their numbers dwarfed ours, their firepower overwhelming. The battle began with a roar, lasers cutting through space, missiles streaking like deadly comets. On the station, alarms blared as turrets fired and shields flared. The battle for Argus. I took my position on the bridge, coordinating with the fleet and ground defenses. Hold the line, I shouted. The Void Reaper led the charge, darting through enemy fire, striking critical targets. Lyra piloted with deadly precision, weaving the ship through the chaos. Zaya hacked enemy targeting systems, turning their weapons against them. Sacrifice and courage. The battle was brutal and costly. We lost ships, comrades, and hope more than once. But the spirit of humanity refused to break. Elena Morozov led a boarding party onto a crippled Corps cruiser, fighting hand-to-hand with enemy soldiers. Her courage inspired us all, turning the tide. Slowly, the tide shifted. Her ships began to retreat, their formations breaking under our relentless assault. The station's defenses held, battered but unbroken. As the last enemy ship fled into the void, a cheer erupted through the station. We had won, but at a price. Reflections after the storm. Exhausted, I walked among the wounded and survivors. The station was scarred, but alive. I thought about the cost of survival, the friends lost, the battles fought, the future still uncertain. But despite everything, hope remained. We were humanity's last shot. A new resolve. Standing on the observation deck once more, I gazed at the stars. The war was far from over, but we had proven something important, that even in the darkest times, humanity could stand tall. We would fight, we would endure, and we would win. War isn't just about battles. It's about alliances, trust, and betrayals. Out here in the far reaches of the galaxy, friends can become enemies, and enemies might hold the key to survival. The line between loyalty and treachery is razor thin, and sometimes it snaps. The fragile pact. After the brutal defense of Argus Station, our victory felt hollow. The Corps retreated, but their shadows still loomed large. The rebellion needed allies, and fast. We reached out to the Horus Coalition, a confederation of alien species with advanced technology and political influence. They were known for their strict neutrality and fierce independence. Negotiations were tense. Their leaders, tall and enigmatic, met us aboard the Void Reaper in the station's dimly lit conference room. Meeting the Horus envoy. I remember the moment I first saw Kaldar, the Horus envoy. His eyes glowed with a soft blue light, his skin shimmering like polished obsidian. He spoke calmly, voice smooth but filled with hidden power. We admire your resilience, humans, but the core threatens us all. In alliances, logical. Lyra, always blunt, leaned forward. Logical isn't enough. We need commitment. Your technology, your fleets. We need them now. Kilder smiled faintly. Commitment comes at a price, the price of trust. The Horus demanded we assist them in reclaiming a strategic outpost held by the core, the Pharos Station. It was a fortress at the edge of core space, crucial for controlling trade routes and supply lines. The mission was perilous, but without their support, our fight was doomed. I agreed. We'll help you reclaim Pharos, but once it's done, the alliance has to be real. Kilder nodded. Agreed. Planning the assault. Back on the bridge, we prepared. Maps, schematics, intelligence reports, every detail mattered. Tech worked with the Horus engineers, integrating their shield tech with our weapon systems. Zaya coordinated cyber warfare units, ready to hack Pharos defenses. Vraxthal and Lyra trained the boarding teams for urban combat inside the station. Into the heart of core territory, the journey to Pharos Station was tense and silent. Every sensor ping, every distant flicker of light could be a core scout or trap. I spent hours in the pilot's chair, scanning the void. The core wasn't just an enemy. They were an unstoppable force, relentless and unforgiving. The assault begins. As we approached Pharos, the station loomed ahead like a dark monolith. Core patrol ships circled its orbit, defenses bristling. We launched our strike. Horus ships took positions to block reinforcements, while we targeted weapon emplacements. The Void Reaper led the charge, weaving through heavy fire. Fighting in the shadows. Inside Pharos Station, the battle turned brutal. Dark corridors echoed with gunfire and explosions. The core soldiers fought with fanatical devotion, willing to die rather than surrender. Lyra and I led a team through the labyrinthine tunnels, disabling security nodes and planting charges. Betrayal in the ranks. Then it happened. An explosion rocked the corridor behind us. Core soldiers ambushed us. Except this time, they knew our plans. Someone had betrayed us. The Broken Alliance. Back on the bridge of the Void Reaper, Keldar's expression was unreadable. You humans have complicated the mission, he said coldly over the comms. What are you saying? I demanded. The Horus will not continue this alliance. Your unpredictability jeopardizes our interests. Cut off and alone, the Horus ships pulled back, leaving us stranded deep in enemy territory. Our forces were outnumbered and outgunned. Survival became our only option, fighting against the odds. With dwindling supplies and reinforcements, every step was a struggle. But surrender wasn't on our terms. We fought through every corridor, every chamber. Zaya hacked enemy turrets to turn them against their own. Vraxthal piloted a stolen core shuttle to rescue trapped fighters. The heart of the station. Finally, we reached the central control room. Pharos AI was still operational, controlling defenses and communications. Zaya began hacking to shut down the station's systems. As we worked, the Core's commander appeared, a towering figure clad in dark armor. The duel of commanders. The confrontation was inevitable. He challenged me directly. Our fight was brutal, blasts of energy and close-quarters combat. The station's lights flickered with every strike. In a final desperate move, I disabled his armor's power source, forcing him to retreat, escape, and reflection. With the station crippled, we escaped aboard stolen ships. The Void Reaper barely held together, but we made it back to Argus Station. The Horus Alliance was shattered, but our resolve wasn't. Lessons of trust and betrayal. Back on Argus, I looked around at my weary crew. Betrayal stings, but it teaches us who we really are. We're human, flawed, stubborn, but unbreakable. The war had grown more complicated, but so had we. The future of the fight. The Broken Alliance was a setback, but not the end. The core was still vulnerable, and as long as we breathed, humanity's fight would go on. Final thoughts. War isn't clean. It's messy and brutal, but it's also about hope. Hope that even in the darkest alliances, we find the strength to stand alone and keep fighting. The war outside was brutal and relentless, but sometimes the deadliest battles were fought in the quiet spaces within, in trust betrayed, secrets hidden, and fears whispered in shadows. As much as the core threatened us from without, I realized the enemy had already taken root among us. A quiet warning. The days after the failed Pharos assault felt heavy with tension. Argus Station was still reeling from the betrayal of the Horus Coalition and the losses we had suffered. I sat in the command center, staring at the flickering tactical displays. The Void Reaper was docked for repairs, her hull scarred, her systems groaning under strain. Lyra was busy organizing patrols, and Zaya was buried in code, trying to secure our networks from further sabotage. A message in the dark. Late that night, an encrypted comm ping startled me. I accessed the message alone in my quarters. The sender was anonymous, no signature, no traceable origin. The message was chilling. Trust no one. The core's poison runs deeper than you know. Seeds of doubt. I replayed the message in my mind over and over. Was this a warning? A trap? Or something worse, the sign of spies among us? I knew the crew had been under stress. Long missions, close quarters, the constant threat of death. Paranoia could infect even the strongest. Gathering the trusted few, I decided to act quietly. I gathered my most trusted officers, Lyra, Zaya, Vraxthal, and Tech, in the briefing room. We've got a problem, I said, voice low. The core's influence may have infiltrated Argus Station. The room fell silent. The investigation begins. We divided the crew into discrete teams, monitoring communications, scanning for irregular activities. Zaya used her hacking skills to dig into the station's network logs. Lyra coordinated physical patrols. Vraxthal and Tech interviewed crew members, watching for signs of stress or deceit. Unseen eyes. The deeper we dug, the more unsettling things became. Small equipment malfunctions, delayed orders, unaccounted for movement logs. It felt like the station itself was watching us, breathing betrayal through every corridor. A close call. One night, while reviewing sensor logs, Zaya's voice trembled over the comms. I found something. Unauthorized access to the armory. I rushed to the armory with Lyra and Vraxthal. The door was ajar. Inside, weapons had been tampered with, safeties disabled, ammo caches exposed. Had someone planned to sabotage our defenses? Confrontation in the dark. We set a trap. Hidden cameras and guards watched the armory. Hours later, a figure slipped inside. The intruder was caught, a low-ranking crew member named Darnus. The interrogation. Under questioning, Darnus broke quickly. He confessed to being a Core sympathizer, recruited years ago when the Core first advanced into human space. He'd been sabotaging our defenses slowly, hoping to weaken us for an internal collapse. The bigger picture. Darnus's arrest was only the beginning. Further investigation revealed a small network of Core sympathizers embedded in the station. Some were coerced, others convinced. Some just wanted to survive at any cost. The weight of betrayal. The betrayal cut deep. Among my crew were people who looked at me with eyes I couldn't trust anymore. I wrestled with anger and sorrow. How many lives had been endangered? How close had they brought us to ruin? Rallying the crew, I called a station-wide assembly. Standing before them, I was honest about the threat within. We fight the Core together, or we fall apart, I said. We cannot let fear divide us. It was a gamble. Trust had to be rebuilt. A new security protocol. With Zaya's help, we implemented stricter security protocols, tighter access controls, encrypted comms, and mandatory loyalty checks. Lyra intensified patrols and drills, ensuring readiness. Vraxthal organized counseling sessions. Morale was fragile, and we needed to keep it strong. Shadows of the mind. But beyond security measures, the battle was psychological. Paranoia whispered in the quiet. People watched each other. Questions replaced camaraderie. I knew that if we lost ourselves to fear, the Core would win without firing a shot. Finding strength in unity. I worked to remind the crew why we fought. We were more than soldiers. We were a family forged in the fires of war. Slowly, the shadows lifted. Unexpected allies. In a surprising twist, some former sympathizers came forward, driven by guilt or a desire to make amends. Their insider knowledge became a valuable asset. The cost of vigilance. Yet, vigilance came at a cost. The station's atmosphere grew tense, the constant watch exhausting everyone. We lost some good people to suspicion and fear. The calm before the next storm. As weeks passed, the internal threat was contained, but not eliminated. The war outside raged on, and the Core was regrouping. We were stronger, but the shadows within had changed us. Final thoughts. The enemy isn't always out there. Sometimes it lives inside us, in our doubts, fears, and secrets. But humanity's greatest strength isn't just technology, or firepower. It's our ability to face the darkness within and still choose to fight for the light. The war outside was getting fiercer every day, but inside the Void Reaper, tension crackled like static in the air. After uncovering the shadows lurking within Argus Station, I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. Sometimes, war forces you into desperate moves. And when you're backed against the void, gambits aren't just strategies, they're lifelines. The news that shook us. It was a bleak morning when the message came through, urgent and raw. The Corps was mobilizing a massive fleet, larger than anything we'd faced. They called it the Iron Storm, a devastating assault plan to crush the rebellion in a single, overwhelming strike. The fleet was assembling near the Crucible Nebula, a swirling cloud of cosmic debris and ion storms, a perfect place for ambush or annihilation. Planning the gambit. I called an emergency meeting with the senior officers aboard the Void Reaper. "This isn't just a battle," I said grimly. "It's the Corps' attempt to end this war." Lyra slammed her fist on the table. "We can't just wait to be crushed." Zaya's fingers danced across her holopad. "We need to strike first. Hit them where it hurts." The risk and the reward. The plan was audacious. We'd infiltrate the Crucible Nebula, use the ion storms as cover, and sabotage the Corps' flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. Destroying the flagship could scatter their fleet, buying us time to regroup. But the nebula was a death trap. Sensors scrambled, navigation was a nightmare, and one wrong move meant drifting helpless into the void. Preparing for the storm, the crew worked tirelessly. Tech reconfigured our stealth systems, adapting them to ion storm interference. Vraxthal led flight simulations, drilling pilots on navigating the nebula's unpredictable turbulence. Zaya developed a virus to cripple the Dominion's Wrath's command systems. The departure. We left Argus Station cloaked in silence, heading into the storm. The Void Reaper shuddered as we entered the nebula's outer edge. Lightning-like discharges crackled across the hull. Visibility dropped to near zero. Our sensors danced with static. Every second felt like slipping between the fingers of fate. Into the maelstrom. Navigating the nebula was chaos. Massive ion storms pulsed and roared around us, throwing us off course. The crew held steady, nerves stretched thin. I gripped the controls tighter than ever. The first contact. Suddenly, alarms blared. Kur's scouts detected us. Fighters swarmed like angry wasps. The Void Reaper launched into evasive maneuvers. A dance of death. The battle in the nebula was surreal. Ion storms masked weapons fire, flashes of light and shadow. Tech coordinated countermeasures, weaving through debris and enemy fire. Zaya's cyber warfare unit struck the Dominion's Wrath systems, viruses creeping through their network. Boarding the beast. We couldn't just destroy the flagship from afar. A boarding team, led by Lyra and me, prepared to storm the Dominion's Wrath. We donned powered armor, weapons loaded, hearts pounding. Breaching the hull, the docking clamps released us into the enemy ship's dark corridors. The Dominion's Wrath was a fortress, heavy armor, automated turrets, and Corps soldiers ready to die. Every step echoed with tension. The virus takes hold. Zaya's virus spread through the flagship's core systems. Doors locked and unlocked at random, communication scrambled, and defense turrets shut down. But the Corps commander wasn't going down without a fight. The final showdown. Deep in the command deck, we faced the Corps' admiral, a ruthless strategist known as Seraph. He was a giant of a man, cold eyes scanning us like a predator. We fought viciously, every move a deadly gamble. I took a hit. Burning pain flared across my side, but I kept fighting. Victory and escape. With the admiral down and systems failing, the Dominion's Wrath started to self-destruct. We raced back to the Void Reaper, dodging explosions and collapsing corridors. Just as we sealed the last bulkhead, the flagship erupted behind us, a fiery beacon in the dark. Aftermath. The Iron Storm fleet scattered, their command crippled. The rebellion gained precious time, but the cost was high. Wounded, exhausted, and shaken. Reflection in the void. In the quiet afterward, I looked around at my crew. We'd gambled everything and won, but the war wasn't over. There would be more storms ahead. The human edge. What kept us alive wasn't just tech or tactics. It was our grit, that stubborn refusal to bow. The Corps could build fleets and weapons, but we had something else. Hope, heart, humanity. We were running out of time. The battlefield stretched before us like a dark promise, a war torn into the farthest reaches of space, the stars themselves dimmed by the shadow of the Corps. After the Iron Storm gambit, we bought ourselves a breath, a fleeting chance to rally, to strike back. But the Corps' wrath would not be quelled so easily. This was it, the final stand. Preparing for the final battle. The Void Reaper hummed quietly, patched and battle-worn but still lethal. The crew moved with grim purpose, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. The reports from our scouts were grim. The Corps had massed a massive force near the ruins of New Terra, the last bastion of free humanity. If the Corps took New Terra, the war was over. We were humanity's last hope. Rallying the fleet, I stood on the bridge, overlooking the fleet we'd managed to assemble, scattered remnants of broken ships, battered but ready. Leaders from various resistance cells had answered the call. We were a ragtag armada, but we were united. I could see in their eyes the same fire that burned in mine. The calm before the storm. In the moments before battle, I allowed myself a rare pause. Memories flashed of the friends lost, the betrayals, the victories, the price paid. We had come so far. I thought of Lyra's unwavering courage, Zaya's unyielding resolve, Vraxthal's fierce loyalty, and Tech's steady hand. Together, we were more than a crew, we were a family. The Corps' onslaught. Then the Corps fleet emerged from the darkness. A sea of steel and fire, vessels bristling with weapons and deadly intent. They poured into the battlefield like a living storm. Battle commences. The first shots rang out, a symphony of chaos. Energy beams streaked across space. Missiles exploded into blazing death. The Void Reaper danced through the fury, her shields flaring, engines screaming. I barked orders, coordinating with our allied commanders, fighting for every inch. The battle was brutal, close quarters in the vacuum of space. Fighters swarmed, boarding actions flared, explosions rocked the hull. Every inch gained was paid in blood. The turning point. Amidst the carnage, Zaya's cyber warfare team struck again, this time targeting the Corps' central command grid. The network trembled, their systems faltered, but the Corps retaliated swiftly. The enemy commander, then I saw him. The Corps' supreme commander, a towering figure clad in armor of dark alloy. His presence was a shadow that chilled the soul. He was the embodiment of the enemy's relentless will. The duel. I couldn't let him live. We faced off on the bridge of his command ship, a clash of wills and weapons. The duel was savage and relentless. Pain lanced through me as we traded blows, but I refused to yield. Victory at a cost. With a final, desperate strike, I felled the commander. His ship began to crumble, systems collapsing. We fled just as it exploded, a brilliant nova in the void. Aftermath and reflection. The Corps fleet scattered, broken and leaderless. The war was not won, but the tide had turned. We had survived the last light, humanity's future. In the quiet that followed, I looked around at my crew. We were battered, but unbroken. The war had changed us, forged us in fire, but humanity endured. Our greatest strength was never our weapons, but our spirit. The end and a new beginning. As the Void Reaper sailed through the stars, I knew our fight was far from over. But for the first time, hope shone bright. We were the last light in the darkness, and we would burn fiercely until the very end.